to make stuffed shells two-way. We're gonna do my meatball stuffed shell and then a 3-cheese stuffed shell. We're gonna bake up our Gouda and black pepper loaf and make a caprese salad and cut up some fruit. So let's start by putting our jumbo shells into our water to start boiling. All in there. I'm gonna get a little thing to pat it down. I want all of them under the water. And now we're gonna prep up our loaf here. So this was our Gouda and black pepper loaf I made yesterday. I'm hoping that it will pop because last night I fell asleep instead of remembering to laminate it. So it kind of got a little overproofed, but I'm hoping that it's not bad. I'm not one to throw out something. I think it will still taste good. It will be a little more squat, but I'm still hoping to get a good pop out of it. It just got like triple the proofing time it normally gets. So we're gonna just do our our big expansion score across, and then do our simple wheat leaf. This is just such a simple design that always kind of looks elegant. Some people can go really crazy in their designs. Do another little slit in there for our big peak. Okay, we're gonna take the lid off. Have this preheated at 500 for the last, 45 minutes. We're gonna drop this guy in carefully.
Someone said they made the pork tenderloin sandwiches for their family and they love them.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm hoping to get some more converts to that. They're so good. So I've got it in here. We're going to put the lid on and we're going to pop this guy in the oven at 500 for 20 minutes. Then we'll take off the lid and do 400 or 450 for 20 minutes. I love the pork tenderloin sandwiches. Those are a favorite here. And they're very common in the Midwest, but outside of the Midwest, they're not that common. But they are delicious, and it's a fun little take to change it up. Okay, let me set my timer for 20 minutes. And now we're gonna kind of prep our two fillings for our, I realized I need a second bowl because I'm doing two fillings. So I'm gonna grab that one over here. We're gonna have our meatball filling and then our cheese filling. So let's start with our meatball filling. We are going to do, I'm not doing quite a full meatball loaf. So I've got about not even 1.5, 1 1/3 pound of meat altogether. So 2/3 of Italian sausage and 2/3 of ground beef. We're gonna make a panade using 1 slice of bread and 1 egg. We're gonna drench our bread in cream until it's nice and soggy, but not oozing. And it's be a couple tablespoons of it. Now, I like to use cream with this versus milk because milk's a little bit thinner. But if you do use milk, you just need to use a little bit less because that bread will soak it up pretty fast. We're gonna add in our egg. And then I'm gonna add in my seasoning so they can kind of hydrate up in that milk as well. We're gonna do some onion powder. Do a good shake here, maybe about a 1/2 tablespoon. Got my Italian seasoning. We're gonna do about almost a tablespoon. And then my garlic salt. We're gonna do just about a 1/2 tablespoon. We need a little bit less because we don't have as much meat. And remember, Italian sausage has already been seasoned, so it doesn't need quite as much. Now we are gonna go through, I'm gonna first smush this up and kind of make a little paste with it. So I'm gonna run it through my fingers and kind of get all those herbs mixed together and break up that bread until it's a nice panade, which is an egg, bread, and milk paste, which is used as a binder for meatballs. And I prefer this over breadcrumbs. I find breadcrumbs can really dry out your meatballs. So or do things, but you do want to stick with a soft bread for this. So sourdough or a crusty Italian is not going to work because that crust is not going to get soggy enough to where it will come and form a nice paste, and then you'll eat a meatball that will have a giant piece of crust in it. So a really soft crusted bread is perfect for this. Okay, I think we have a fairly good panade. And now we're gonna add in our meat. So we've got our ground beef and our Italian sausage. And what I'm gonna do is I am just going to kind of do that same movement of squeezing the meat through my hands. And this is gonna allow those two meats to combine together with that panade so that you have all those flavors evenly mixed around. And as that panade mixes in, you're gonna get a nice kind of sticky meatball base. And this is what we're gonna fill up half of our shells with. And then we're gonna make a 3 cheese base using mozzarella, ricotta, and Parmesan cheese for our second base. There we go. This is just about mixed up. Okay, we're gonna get all this little bit of goop off my hands. I'm gonna go wash it, and then we'll make our other base. Fortunately, there's no good way to make meatball base without getting your hands dirty. Now we're gonna make our 3 cheese base here. And then we're gonna add in a little bit of fresh basil and some pesto to it. Let me get these out of the way as well. We're gonna give our noodles a little stir here. These noodles take about 15 minutes to cook, and then they'll be nice and soft and malleable. What we'll do is we'll strain them and then we'll rinse them with cold water so they're not super hot to work with. Okay, I've got, this is 16 ounces, that's what I got. 16 ounces of ricotta cheese. You're gonna wanna use whole milk ricotta. I think it's just creamier, tastes better. It won't be as watery. So we're gonna add this in here. And then we're gonna use mozzarella cheese. So I'm gonna use about a cup of mozzarella cheese, which is about a good handful. Do a little pinch more. And then we're gonna use Parmesan cheese. Go wash my hands real quick. Got a little bit of mozzarella powder on. And then we're gonna use a nice kind of handful of the Parmesan. And I really like to use the mixture of it. Parmesan's a much drier cheese. It has a more flavor to it, where mozzarella will give you that nice pull on it, and ricotta is gonna give you the creaminess. So they're gonna blend up really well together.
You have a question? How was lunch?
Delicious. We had, took me a second to remember, we had BLTs, and I have been craving a BLT in a while, but we didn't have just any BLT, we had to have a chicken BLT. And they were great, and all of the pound cakes are gone, all of them. There was actually a fight over the last pound cake this, like an hour ago. Teddy won out because he, you know, he's cute and he's doing his, I'm having surgery on Monday, so you gotta give me whatever I want. Look, which I think he deserves it. I was trying to do some research on, like, you know, tonsillectomy and getting your adenoids out. I think it's called an adenectomy. We're gonna put a tablespoon of pesto in there, and there's just, it's not a fun surgery for the kids and for him, and apparently it's a terrible recovery time, and like a week later it gets even worse. So I think on Sunday I was reading how one mom had taken her daughter out, and she got to pick out all of her special drinks and treats and like ice cream and popsicles for that recovery week. And so I think I'm gonna take Teddy out, let him pick that out, pick out a couple little toys to kind of cheer him up, because I don't think he understands what's going on.
You have a question? What's the brand for the Parmesan?
Okay, I love this one. It's called Cello, and it's from Costco. So I don't know if they have it other places, but you can get it there. And this is our favorite. Actually, I was told that we can never be without this in the house by my daughter because she loves Parmesan cheese and she is an addict when it comes to it. It's like she coats it on there, but it's big, flaky, and it's not as dried out, so it feels like it's as if you freshly shaved it. We're gonna add in some Italian spices. We're gonna add in about a half a teaspoon or half a tablespoon. This is gonna flavor it up because you wanna flavor the inside of your ricotta or the base so it's not super bland or just super cheesy. We're gonna add in a little bit of garlic salt. But remember, Parmesan cheese and mozzarella are gonna add a little bit of saltiness to it. Ricotta is pretty mild, but you're gonna wanna add in about a teaspoon of garlic salt. Then I'm gonna mix it up, and then we're gonna cut up some fresh basil to add in here. If my parents were in town, I would also add up chopped spinach in here, but since they're out of town, I'm just gonna keep it pretty mild and just have it cheese. I'm not gonna sneak in any vegetables, which might scare my kids off. Okay, we've got almost our base here. I'm just gonna chop up some of my basil. I bought a bin of it, but I realized when I bought it, I'm like, oh, my basil plants have been amazing outside, but it's been raining every single day, so I haven't had a chance to kind of go peek at them. But I have a feeling I have plenty of basil there. It's nice because when it rains, my garden flourishes because it's not relying on me for water.
You have a question? Have you ever done Alfredo sauce with stuffed shells?
I sometimes do like a Parmesan cream sauce, which is essentially the same thing as an Alfredo. And I was actually thinking about doing two separate ones and having one with a cream sauce and one with a marinara. But then I realized that would make two dishes and too much work. But yes, sometimes I do it with it because my kids love. We always call them butter noodles, but they're not. It's a Parmesan cream sauce, but they love that when I make it. So we're gonna just mince up this basil. There we go. Nice and small, but this is gonna add a nice little freshness to our ricotta cheese, which I think will be lovely. I always like to add fresh basil also when I'm making lasagna because I feel like that's one of those ones where that ricotta needs to be seasoned up well or it gets to be like so much cheese. Okay, let's give this a good mix. And then I'm gonna check on my noodles because I think they're getting pretty close to being done. But there, we've got our meat and our cheese bases to stuff up our big jumbo noodles here. Yep, these are done. I'm gonna turn the water off. And then I'm gonna strain them and then rinse them with cold water so that I'm able to work with them. That way you don't have to wait for them to completely cool off. Couple in here. Just gonna run them under the cold water. And if you're ever making pasta salad, this is also a really great thing. You run your noodles under the water, like cold water, to prevent them from continually cooking. And I don't need them to be super cold because I've been told that my hands are got calloused hands that feel no heat. I think when you get used to cooking, you build up, I guess, heat calluses because I'm just always touching hot things and everybody's like, how do you do that? Okay. I'm using my giant, this is kind of a 9 by 13 cast iron pan. So this is gonna really conduct the heat well in the oven, keep it nice and warm, so that even when we do move these shells out, they'll be nice and like it will stay warm for a while. Okay, let's start with, we'll do meat first, and then we'll do cheese, because cheese can get a little bit messy. So I'm just gonna stuff it up like this. And then we're gonna put our little babies, let our little shells in here. When I have lots of extra shells at the end, I will go over and put them on top of them so we're not wasting anything. But I don't do that until the very end.
You know, question, where did you get the pan?
This is actually from like the Joanna Gaines collection, like Hearth and Hand. Got it at Target. I'm a great lover of Target, or Target if you want to be bougie. You know, I feel like if all the other stores closed down and I just had Target, I'd be happy. And so it's there. I love her like cast iron stuff is actually pretty good, and it's really reasonably priced. I got her little mini Dutch ovens, and I have to say they work just as great as my Le Creuset collection, and I have a big Le Creuset collection. I have got like 20 pieces, but hers are pretty good. I mean, I feel like when you get down to the bones of it, cast iron is cast iron, so it's gonna cook well, I think, no matter what. It's a heavy pan, I will tell you that. It has definitely got some heft behind it. Especially when you have it loaded up. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh. Let's see, I think I'm gonna try to get 5 in a row. We'll kind of squeeze these guys in like little sardines. These are one of those things where I felt like, I wanna say, like in the early 2000s, stuffed shells were like an it food. And I remember the first time I had them actually was my sister, who does not like to cook, or just doesn't cook. She made them, and they were like so good that I've just kind of like based it on her recipe and changed it up a little bit over time. And then this is gonna be my dividing wall. I'm gonna make, that way I know where they'll stop and go. Change the direction. Actually, no, we're just gonna do it this way because I miscalculated. So we're gonna I'm gonna try to get 6 rows, 3 of meatball and 3 of the cheese. We've got our first round in here. Okay, now we're gonna go in with our ricotta, or our 3 cheese. So ricotta, mozzarella, and Parmesan cheese. We're gonna just kind of fill these guys up and squish it in here. And so they'll be like a cheese ball inside. Be delicious. But I highly recommend you season up your ricotta with whatever flavors you want to, do it. I do, Italian seasoning, pesto. I think adding pesto in it gives it such a great flavor, but it breaks up the monotony of just having a bunch of plain cheeses. And so, especially when you've got a big ball like that, you kind of want to have it broken up. You could also do where it's a hybrid of these two, where you just saute up Italian sausage, and then you can put it in here as well. So here we've got our shells forming. So I'm just gonna hold it open like this, and then you're just gonna take a little ball of your cheese and stuff it in there. But that's how my sister made it. It was a mixture of ricotta, cheese, and Italian sausage. And if you're gonna do it that way, what you're gonna do is you're not gonna leave it raw. You're gonna cook up your Italian sausage first, then you're gonna mix it into your ricotta. And you'll stuff it with that, and it's delicious as well. Here we go. Getting our next round. And we'll have enough, we'll go back over with our remaining shells. I don't know if we'll have enough to cover every shell with a second layer of it, but I don't like to waste my shells. go. And you gotta use the jumbo, not the large, the jumbo.
You have a question or kind of a comment that someone's watched you cook for several months and you never repeat. How many meals can you make?
Oh, I feel like cooking, you can make everything. I don't necessarily repeat the exact same meals, but there are plenty of meals that I repeat portions of. But you can change it up because if you think about it, there's like a million different chicken recipes, a million different fish recipes. I always like to change it up a lot because I don't want to get bored with the same food. I feel like growing up, and I think this was probably a 90s, 80s, 70s, probably those generations, but you guys had like, people had the same menu plan every single week. It was like Taco Tuesday and Spaghetti Mondays and Pizza Fridays and, you know, Meatloaf Mondays. It was like the same like 10 meals on rotation. And I really, really try to change it up a little bit. And you might have certain meals that are similar, like spaghetti and meatballs, stuffed shells, baked ziti. Very common, but different. You know, I hope my kids aren't going to be picky eaters when they grow up. I'm still working on Evie, guys. She's my biggest food critic. But, you know, I like a lot of variety. I like to do that. We do keep a lot of simple, like the same proteins, but we change it up, try to do it there. But I feel like food is one of those things that you can just do so much with the same simple ingredients in your house. You don't have to go crazy with your, you know, getting super fancy ingredients that you can't find anywhere. Just sticking with the basics and spices allows you to really change things without having to feel like you have to be an expert in every field.
You have a question? Can you go over the fillings for the shells?
Yes. So for our meat filling, we used about 2/3 pound of Italian sausage and 2/3 pound of ground beef. And then we seasoned them. We made a panade using a slice of bread, an egg, and cream. And then we added Italian spices and garlic, salt, and onion powder. So I call that my meatball filling because that's kind of my meatball base. And then, let's go get the bread first, and then we can talk about our cheese filling on the other ones. But it is time to remove the lid on our sourdough. I'm hoping, like I said, guys, I fell asleep last night and I forgot to laminate it, so I didn't laminate it until like 7 a.m. And I normally laminate it at midnight. So it got a little extra proofing. So I'm hoping it has a good pop, but I think it could be a little flat. Oh, it actually popped really well. Sourdough is very forgiving here. We've got a good expansion on it. I was thinking it might be a little deflated because when you overproof it, then you're gonna have weaker kind of gluten strands in it and not as good of a rise. Okay, we're gonna turn our oven down to 450 now. We're gonna leave the lid off, not air fry, because you want that nice golden brown crust on it. And then we are going to cook this for 20 minutes. There we go. And in just a few minutes, we're gonna pop our shells in there underneath it to let those kind of cook up as well. So let's get our noodles on top and we can talk about our ricotta filling, or not our 3 cheese filling. So this one, our cheese one, is made with ricotta, whole, like you wanna do whole milk ricotta, a mozzarella cheese, and Parmesan cheese. And it is mixed with some pesto, and then fresh basil, and then Italian seasoning and garlic salt. And that's just gonna give it that nice flavor to it, and kind of help break up the creaminess of it. Also, I like to use mozzarella and Parmesan with it because ricotta is a very creamy cheese and it doesn't have a base to it. So that mozzarella will give you more of a base than and same with the Parmesan cheese. It will give you body versus having it all creamy. And I'm just taking some of my extra noodles here. We're just gonna throw some over the top of them. I will say my son Torrin, he really loves the double noodles. And my husband, on the opposite, loves just the insides. So it's kind of a win of both worlds, but there's no need to throw away anything or waste anything. Just pop them on top of them, and they're like a little present, a little treasure. There we go. And then we're gonna cover this up with some marinara sauce, but you could easily do any sauce you wanna do. You could do an Alfredo, a bechamel, and, you know, Parmesan cream sauce. You could do, you know, anything. I would say you want a heartier sauce. You don't want a thin sauce like a pesto or like a white wine sauce, but a nice hearty sauce, like a cream sauce or that. Let me grab, here they are, my marinara. Okay, as I get older, I found that my hands can no longer open jars, but I don't know how many years ago, but I saw this hack and I've been using it ever since. You just stick a butter knife in and you pop it until you let that air out, and it just opens up easily. That way you don't need to go find somebody to open it for you. We're just gonna pour this over, and we'll see. I think I might be able to get by with just one jar. This is like the Costco bulk jars. So I'm just using marinara. I'm using Rayos. Rayos is my favorite because it's not super like overly spiced. It's very simple. It's not sweet. It has a lovely flavor to it.
You have a question? Do you ever make your own sauce?
I do make my own sauce. I've done it a couple, especially if I've got a lot of tomatoes for my plants, I'll make my own sauce. But that's like a labor of love. It does take like a minute. You've got to be, you know, reducing it, cooking it. And I will put the whole noodles or the whole tomatoes in. I don't peel them when I do it. And I find that it's delicious. But this is just as good. I've gone through several marinara sauces. This is my favorite. And I feel like it didn't exist when we were kids. I felt like when I was a kid, it was ragu or prego. Those were like the two ones that you could have. We're gonna put a little cheese coating on this because the cheese just makes it delicious. I'm not gonna go super thick, but I'm gonna do some with my mozzarella, and then of course a little bit of Parmesan on it because I love Parmesan. It just gives a little bit more crisp on it. But I'm not gonna go too crazy heavy, not like a lasagna on here. And then let's get our Parmesan, and then we're gonna pop this in the oven to cook up. And my goal is that this should be done by the time our bread is done. And when we get out, we will just have our fruit and our caprese salad to make up. So let's go pop this in the oven. The great thing about this is it's heavy, but this cast iron will help keep it hot and continue to cook it. So my oven's at 450, which is nice and hot, which will allow these meatballs and stuff in there to cook really well and pretty quick. I'm gonna place it right underneath my bread here, which will prevent that cheese from getting too dark on there. Sometimes if you do a cheese layer on it, you can burn your cheese if you cook it too long or at too high of a heat. But I'm hoping that that Dutch oven will kind of protect that. Okay, let's get to our next part of our dinner. We are going to make a caprese salad, or caprese, I think it's called caprese. Or, you know, it's one of those words that you learn saying it wrong, and it's really hard to correct when you've said it wrong your whole life, but I think it's caprese. But I'm just gonna keep calling it caprese because that's what I'm always my brain's gonna go to. Okay. Let's make our little salad here, which I love, which is very simple. It's just fresh tomatoes, fresh mozzarella, fresh basil, and then I will drizzle with a little balsamic glaze. So we're gonna first start slicing up our tomatoes here. And I've got just good old vine ripes. Heirloom tomatoes are the best. And then I have a few of my Campari tomatoes, which are really flavorful, which will also work well with this. Most of the time I would just pick out my core, but since I'm doing the salad here, I'm just gonna actually just take off the tops here and not really worry about it. I sharpened up my knife earlier, so it's nice and sharp to cut through my tomatoes. I say tomatoes are always those ones that you slip and slide on. I'm gonna put these around. We got one, and then we'll do our Campari, and then fresh mozzarella. Keep saying, I'm like, I'm gonna learn how to make fresh mozzarella. My brother-in-law makes it, and it's so good, and I love mozzarella. And it's such an expensive cheese, like fresh mozzarella, that I'm like, I should just make it myself. I feel like I have always tons of gallons of milk here at this house, because with the kids, I feel like we drink an insane amount. I buy 6 gallons of milk a week. That's how much milk we go through. And granted, we are a big family, but still, it's a lot of milk. And that's why I have 4 refrigerators. Insane. Okay, there we go. This tomato is a little soft, so I didn't want to push too hard on it and then have all the juices come out. So we've got our kind of base layer of our tomatoes here. Then we're gonna put our basil, our fresh basil on. So I'm gonna put about a leaf on here, kind of per tomato. Look at this. This guy is he's quite big. And this one, this almost looks like Thai basil that I got from the store. It's not as vibrant as my basil growing out. It has a little purple hue to it, which makes me think it is Thai basil. Which Thai basil, it's also, if you look at it, the basil that I normally grow has a smooth edge, just has a bumpy edge. So I'm pretty sure this is Thai, which has a bit more of a stronger flavor in it. A little bit, it's not spicy, but it has a more intense flavor, but it will still be delicious. It's funny how you get to, I'm at the age where I know that there are different types of the same spice, like oregano and Greek oregano, and they have subtle variations and tastes to them. And it's just, I'm like, this is what I do with my life. This is what I use my doctorate for, which is not in cooking at all. But cooking, I think, is for me, it's such a release. It's such a passion of mine. I always remember in high school, if I had a stressful day in high school, I would come home and bake, and my mom would know. And she'd come home and there'd be like brownies, cookies, like all sorts of things. And she's like, have a rough day? And I'd be like, yes, very rough day. Okay, we had some mozzarella that we used earlier. So we're gonna pull out the rest of this. Now, if you've never worked with fresh mozzarella before, it's always gonna have liquid in the bag with it because you wanna keep it in water to keep it nice and fresh in there. So don't feel like, oh, my mozzarella has gone bad because it's wet. Most mozzarella's, when you buy them, should be in some sort of liquid when they're fresh. We're gonna cut up and we're gonna add about a half. I'm gonna add a big one to that one. Our mozzarella to each of these tomatoes. So that I love this. It's simple, easy, delicious. And I'm gonna actually move and do a big one on that one because, let's see, we're gonna make a couple because I've got a couple big pieces here and I'm not gonna save a big one. There we go. Voila. We've got it. And now let me grab, because I didn't think I set it out, I'm gonna grab my balsamic glaze. This is what's gonna really give you that extra flavor. It's gonna be in I think I actually have it in here.
You have a question? What's your doctorate in?
Educational leadership and policy. So before I had Teddy, I was a teacher, and I worked with children with disabilities and in early child education. So I have a lot of degrees. I have an undergrad in early childhood, an undergrad in special education, and master's in early childhood special education. And then I've got my doctorate in educational leadership and policy. And then when I got pregnant with Teddy, I decided I wanted to have a little time at home because I had worked with all of my kids. And you know what? I was like, I'm in heaven. And then COVID hit, and here I am, still home. I do some educational consulting and everything like that, and I work from home. But it has been nice to be home, and I also now have Jack. So it's been a different world. I was definitely school, work, and then I hit my early 30s, and I was like, I want to stay home, and I've changed it. Instead of going to the office, going to a classroom, I now work from home, and it's been lovely, I will say, and nice. Let's cut up our fruit with dinner tonight. We are going to have honeydew melon, which is a favorite here, and delicious. Much cheaper to buy it yourself and to cut it up. I always wait. I know when it's nice and ready to cut up is when you get it and it has just a little bit of softness when you squeeze it. Not super soft, not mushy, but it's like got a tender firmness. And that's when I know that it will be sweet and full. If it's rock hard when you feel it, then that's gonna be unripe. It was picked early and it needs to sit on your counter. I will say most fruit that I buy from the grocery store needs to sit on my counter for a couple of days before it's ready. Pineapples, cantaloupes, pretty much everything. And then after it's ripened up a little bit, then it's ready to get cut up. Let's take our seeds out. There we go. But I feel like in the summer, we eat a lot of melons, especially all the fun melons that come out in just the summer, like the hammy melon, the golden honeydew melon, the canary melon. I love all the varieties that you get in the summer. And I'm a person I'm not a super fan of like really tart fruits. So the melons are those mild sweetness, very refreshing.
You got a question? Is it the same rule for cantaloupe for how to tell?
Yes, for the cantaloupe, I follow the same rule, except there's one other way on a cantaloupe is you have the little button. You want that button to be more flat versus protruding. And that's where the vine comes off. It's their belly button. And, I always think of the umbilical cord or whatnot, but that's how, if it's nice flat, and not like brown, but like a kind of a greenish brown, not bright green, but that one's, I think, a pretty good indication too that you've got a good one. Okay, so I'm gonna make my slice here, and then I'll do my little cuts along. And this works really well with honeydew, watermelon, or not watermelons, but honeydew, cantaloupes, canaries, hammies. You can lay it flat like this. So you don't have to arc your blade along the fruit. You can just slide it along the bottom, pushing down against your cutting board, and then you'll get as pretty close to the rind without getting the rind, and it makes it really, really easy to cut up your fruit. And I will say, if you learn to cut your own fruit, you're gonna get better fruit because you're gonna know when it's ripe and whatnot versus you look at it, you're always like, is this watermelon good in there? Is this pineapple good? Well, you'll be able to tell on the counter, but you'll save a lot of money because these melons are like $3, but to get it cut up, you're gonna pay like $8, $9 for them to cut it up for you when it can take you less than 5 minutes at home to cut it up. So I'm a big proponent. I cut up all our fruit, but I don't cut it up all at once, like when I get home from the store, because most of it is not ready yet, but I typically just include it in my dinner prep because I always try to add fresh fruit in my kids' meal. So both my dinner and their lunch prep, and then I pick a fruit and that's what we're having. And then the kids kind of all eat it then, which is, it's different. Growing up, I felt like fruit was never a part of dinner. But I always make sure that I make fruit a part of our dinner for the kids. And it's one thing is I want them to get more fruit, but I also cook a wide variety of meal, and I'm not a short order cook. So I'm not going to necessarily, not every one of my kids is gonna love my meal every night. I hope they do. but everybody has different palates and flavors. And the one thing I know is that they'll love the fruit. So there's always fruit for them to eat. There's always something that they love on the menu. And that way nobody's hungry, but I don't have to cook a variety of different meals. And it's worked out pretty well so far, you know. There we go. We'll get these cut up, and then I think we're gonna be pretty close to everything else being done. So tomorrow, we are actually taking our kids to Holiday World. So we'll not do a lunch stream. Depending on when we get back, we may do a dinner stream. But if we get back super late, then we probably won't. So tomorrow might be a day off, guys. But we really wanted to take them there, you know. Where we live, school starts up on August 4th. So our kids have like 2 weeks left of summer vacation. It starts so early here. So we want to make the most of it. And we want to go before Teddy has his surgery on Monday. Poor guy. I'm already sitting there. I've been like reading up on it, and it's like making me feel so sad for him already because it's supposed to be an awful surgery. But I'm hoping that he will be able to breathe better and get good sleep after this. And that will help, and hopefully be able to get him off of his inhaler that he has twice a day. So we're hoping that this surgery gives us good benefits. Let's get the last of it on, and then I'll go peek and check to see how much time we have left, because I think it should be about ready. But you see how like quickly you can cut up a melon in like no time. And this, so I paid, you know, just the regular price for the honeydew, which I think was $3. And this is way more than you would get at the store. This would be like considered like a large container of fruit at the store. And that would easily cost you 10 bucks. So it's already, you know, like almost, you know, a 200% saving on it for it. Okay, let's take a peek. Oh, good, we have about a minute left, so we can probably go over there and grab it out because that should be done. And we can check on our bread. Let me get this set up because it's going to be nice and hot when we come out. I want to be able to flip it out. So we'll take our bread first. We've got a little, like 30 seconds left, so that doesn't matter much. Look at that. It is looking gorgeous for it. So this is our Gouda and black pepper sourdough. I'm gonna put it down. The first thing I do when I take my sourdoughs out of the oven is I get them out of my Dutch oven, because this Dutch oven is like 450, 500 degrees, and I want to make sure that it doesn't continue cooking. I'm going to put this in here, I'll move it there, and then I'm going to show you why, because I love a nice blonde crust on my sourdough. I don't want it to get too dark because that makes it really crunchy. But look at that nice golden brown crust at the bottom, which if you've ever had sourdough, that bottom crust can get really crunchy. And if you leave it in your Dutch oven, that will continue to cook it more. I will just say it did pretty good for being overproofed. I got a pretty big pop-up on it. Didn't quite get as big of a crust on it as I did yesterday, but for forgetting about it overnight, I think it's a win. So this is, again, you can see my black pepper and Gouda, which might be, you can see on the sides, there's little specks of that. That's Gouda cheese. And then you've got black pepper in there. And I used about 1.5 cups of Gouda cheese and then about 1/2 tablespoon of black pepper. And during that stretch and fold stages for it. Let's go grab our shells out of the oven. Once it's there, nice and ready, they are bubbling up nicely. Looking beautiful. So I'm gonna reach in here. And you see how my cheese didn't get burned or anything? That's because I had that Dutch oven over the top of it, so it kind of blocks a little bit of that direct heat, which I think is perfect. Okay. Looking at this delicious. Let me get all of my stuff over here. And that way we can serve up dinner. I'll show you how we're gonna serve it up. But this side of our shells are our meatball stuffed. So we did Italian sausage and ground beef filled with Italian spices. And then we have our 3 cheese. So ricotta, mozzarella, and Parmesan. And let me get my shovel. Okay, I'm not gonna cut into my sourdough yet. If you're new to the sourdough journey, you need to let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes once it comes out of the oven, because if you cut it right now, you're gonna have a gummy middle because you need that steam to escape out and escape out naturally. Okay, let's serve up. We're gonna do our noodles. I'm gonna try to take one from each side so we have this nice cheesy, let's see. We've got our meatball stuffed noodles, and these are our cheesy ricotta and mozzarella cheese stuffed noodles. Look at that delicious kind of cheese pull there. And we will have them with our caprese salad that we used. This is a white balsamic glaze on it, which is made with reduced vinegar. And let's not forget our fresh honeydew melon. And we'll have our black pepper and Gouda sourdough bread with it, which I think will pair great with these flavors, and it will be really delicious to dip this in the marinara. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you just have to go to that link, search for what we cooked for, stuffed shells 2 ways, and then you can cook along with me again at home. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our cooking gadgets in it. We've got our spatulas, our knives, our cutting boards, our different cooking pans and utensils that we use. It's all on there. Well, guys, thanks again for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.